Abbi J from AJ Life Hacks, and today I am talking about journaling. And before you hit the next video on your list, hear me out. This is journaling tips for people who don't like to journal. Yes, I know that some of you out there are fanatic journalists, and that's amazing. And I personally wish I was more like you. But for a lot of us, journaling is something we know we're supposed to do, we know is probably a good idea, but we actually don't take the time to do it. So today I wanted to share 4 tips for my journalers who don't like to journal, or for people who would like to get into journaling. Here are 4 fast and easy ways to make sure that you have an awesome journal, something that you'd be really proud of and really fun to read later in your life. So let's get going. The first step to having an awesome journal is to make sure you write down important events. I know this seems really basic and that everybody would do this, but we don't. I remember I found one of my old journals the other day and I was so excited because it was my journal when I was 12 years old. And at 12, my little brother had a brain tumor. And I was able to find the month that when we found out he had this tumor, and I kept searching for the journal entry about my feelings and my thoughts and my emotions for about when I found out this life-changing news. And guess what? I didn't write anything about it. Nothing. I had a journal entry weeks later that just said some things. I went to school today, I visited Jackson in the hospital, life is pretty good. And I was so frustrated with myself because that was such a life-changing event for me and my family, and I had no personal record of it. So in your life, when major events happen, and I get we're so excited or we're so wrapped up in the moment we don't think to write it down, write it down. Make sure that you have these major events. And one thing I like to do now that I'm older and I use a planner, I use all these different tools and notes everywhere, I'll stick those in my journal. That is such a telling piece of what's important to you right now and what's going on in your life. The second step is to be honest in your journals. Now, I want to be very clear, journaling is not blogging. No one is going to read these journals. And if you're thinking, well, maybe somebody in the future might read these, or I don't want to write anything embarrassing, write your true feelings. Like, who cares? This journal is for you. There have been times when I looked back in my journal and I was so grateful for my honesty and emotions, my honesty with certain people and how I thought about them or viewed them, or why I was mad and frustrated. And I'm grateful for that because I had forgotten those emotions, and had I maybe sugar-coated the truth or sugar-coated my life, I would have forgotten all of these experiences that I went through and how I truly felt. The third step to those of you who don't really like to journal is to make sure that you write down details. That when you do, take that day out of the week and you haven't written all week, that you recap your week and you write some details. Write some very specific things that happen. When I look over some of my past really young journals, and I wasn't a great journal keeper and I still am hit or miss, I kind of glaze over it and I'm like, I went to school today, I hung out with Bree, and I'm gonna go to bed. Okay, bye, and it's just like, what happened in that day? What was significant to me? And my last step for you is more of a tip to motivate yourself to start journaling, and that is to read some of your past journal entries. And why you want to do this is because whenever I read about my journals, or I'm sure you've experienced when you've looked back on what you've written or maybe some videotapes, it is so fun. It is so interesting and reflective to look back and see what you were interested in, who you liked, what you were doing with your life, and maybe some things that you had forgotten. This is such a great tool to you. And the reason I even did a video on journaling is because journals are so important. And they're not important to the world, they're important to you and your world. Because you are keeping literally a history of your life, a history that only you can tell. And you don't have to be writing every day. You don't have to write for hours on end. But you do need to take a second, use these 4 tips to write down some amazing journal entries that you will be so happy and so proud of yourself for writing years down the road. So good luck. Make sure, of course, you go buy a pen, paper, computer, whatever you need to write down your journal, but get going. And thank you for watching these videos, and I'll see you in the next one. Abbi J out.